Greetings and welcome, candidates, to the lesson. We will continue with the topic environmental analysis, and we will proceed with the tools of environmental analysis. So far we've covered the SWOT analysis, the PESTEL analysis. Today we are moving on to the third tool, which is known as Porter's 5 forces model. Porter's 5 forces model. This is another environmental tool that can be used in environmental analysis. Now, candidates, Michael Porter is an authority on competitive strategy, and he contends that a company is most concerned with the intensity of competition within the industry. He also states that the level of this intensity is determined by basic forces, 5 basic forces, what are known as Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces. The word Porter is derived from the propounder of the model, Michael Porter. So the level of intensity, Michael Porter says, that is determined by 5 forces. 5 forces. I'm going to list the forces. Number 1 is the threat of new entrants. Threat These are threats of new entrants in the market or the industry. Number 2 is the bargaining power of suppliers. The bargaining power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers. The third force is the bargaining power of buyers. Bargaining power of buyers. Bargaining power of buyers. The fourth force is the threat of product substitutes. Threat of product substitutes. Threat of product substitutes. Then lastly, the last force is the intensity of rivalry among the competitors. All right? The intensity of rivalry. The intensity of rivalry among the competitors. So these are the 5 forces according to Michael Porter. He said that the level of intensity is determined by these 5 forces. Mike Porter contends that a corporation is most concerned with the intensity of competition within the industry. The intensity of competition within the industry. And this competition can be looked at from these forces. 1 is a threat of new entrants. Number 2, bargaining power of suppliers. Number 3, bargaining power of buyers. Number 4, threat of product substitutes. Number 5, the intensity of rivalry among the competitors. Now, candidates, we are going to study in detail the forces. We'll first pick the first force, which is the threat of new entrants. The threat of new entrants in the market. The threat of new entrants. How is it a force? Now, candidates, identifying new entrants when carrying out environmental analysis is important because the new entrants can threaten the market share of existing competitors. And one reason new entrants pose such a threat is that they bring additional production costs, and unless the demand for a good or service is increasing, that means that additional capacity holds the consumer's costs down, resulting in less revenue and lower returns for the competing firms. And often, new entrants have a keen interest in gaining a large market share. So the threat of new entrants, the threat of entry depends on the presence of entry barriers and the reaction that can be expected from existing competitors. A new competitor can enter a market, or the likelihood of, I can say the likelihood of a new competitor entering a market is dependent on the presence of entry barriers. And what is an entry barrier? An entry barrier is just an obstruction that makes it difficult for a company to enter an industry. So it's important to analyze this threat when carrying out environmental analysis. So we're going to look at some of the barriers. It's important to understand or know some of the barriers of entry barriers. Economies of scale. Economies of scale can be an example or a possible barrier to entry. Economies of scale candidates are derived from incremental efficiency improvements through experience as a firm grows larger, and therefore, as the quantity of a product produced during a given period increases, then the cost of manufacturing each unit also declines. So increasing economies of scale enhances a firm's flexibility. For example, a firm may choose to reduce its price and capture a greater share of the market. Alternatively, it may keep its prices constant in order to increase profits. And in so doing, it likely will increase its free cash flow, which may be helpful in times of recession. And therefore, candidates, a new entrant may face a dilemma when confronting current competitors' scale economies. Small scale entry candidates, the small scale ones, the small scale entry places them at a cost disadvantage. It does what? It places them at a cost disadvantage. Alternatively, large scale entry, in which the new entrant manufactures large volumes, is more likely to gain economies of scale. All right? And such an entrant may risk strong competitive retaliation. Economies of scale. There are two categories: the large scale economies of scale and the small scale. The small scale entrant will have challenges trying to compete with firms that are already established in the market. And the existing competitors may not bother much about such a new entrant. But if there is one who is large scale, all right, large scale entry, in which a new entrant manufactures large volumes of a product, that could be a threat, and there are likely to be retaliation from the existing competition. So one barrier of entry into an industry could be economies of scale. If a company plans to enter into a market, then it has to consider the current competition. Or if the current competition does not want new entrants into the industry, it can rely on large economies of scale, which will give them a cost advantage. Another barrier to new entrants could be what we call a differentiation, product differentiation. Product differentiation. One way to differentiation, product differentiation, product differentiation. Now, the customers valuing a product's uniqueness tend to become loyal to both the product and the company that is producing the product, if the product is unique. And companies may also offer a series of different but highly related products to serve as an entry barrier. For example, offering customers a variety of products from which to choose, just a series of different products to choose from. That can be an entry barrier for new companies. And the new entrants in such a case must allocate many resources over time to overcome existing customer loyalties. And therefore, to combat the perception of uniqueness, new entrants frequently offer products at lower prices. But you know, when you offer products at lower prices, you are also most likely to enjoy lower profits or even losses. So product differentiation is a barrier to entering, can be a barrier that can be set up by the existing companies to restrict new entrants to the industry. Barrier number 3, capital requirements. Capital requirements. Now, competing in a new industry requires a firm to have resources to invest. In addition to the physical facilities, capital is needed for inventories, capital is needed for marketing activities, capital is needed for other critical business functions. And even when a new industry is attractive, the capital required for successful market entry may not be available to pursue the market opportunity. So entering a certain market can be difficult due to capital requirements, and that is a barrier. Capital requirements can be a barrier to entering a new market. Then there is what we call switching costs. Switching costs. Now, switching costs are the one-time costs customers incur when they buy from a different supplier. The cost of buying new, for example, auxiliary equipment, and the cost of retraining employees may be incurred in switching to a new supplier. If you are buying a machine, new machine, that employees have never used before, you may be required to, in the process of switching, after switching, you may be required to incur such costs, which you are calling switching costs, which could be a barrier to entering a given industry. Access to distribution channels can also be a barrier to entry in an industry. Candidates, over time, industry participants typically develop effective means of distributing products. And once a relationship with the distributors has been built, a firm will nurture it, and therefore creating switching costs for the distributors, such that if the distributors have to change, then they have to incur certain costs. So access to distribution channels can be a strong entry barrier for new entrants, particularly in a consumer, when dealing with consumer goods that are non-durable, like grocery stores, where you may find limited shelf space. You may find also such problems in the, say, international markets and so on. So new entrants have to persuade distributors to carry their products either in addition or in a place that is currently being distributed. So access to distribution channels can be a barrier to entering a new market. So when doing environmental analysis, candidates under Porter's 5 forces model, it's important to check the threat of new entrant. That is the first force. Then the second force is bargaining power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers. Bargaining power of suppliers. Now, candidates, suppliers can affect an industry through the ability to raise prices or to reduce the quantity of purchased goods and services. And candidates, a supplier or a group of suppliers, they have a certain power. We are calling the bargaining power of suppliers. The suppliers can have immense power, and they can affect the operations of companies or organizations in a given industry. Is powerful. And that can only, suppliers' power is powerful if there are certain factors in play. Number one, suppliers can be a force to reckon with if such a group is dominated by a few large companies. Okay? If the supply of that commodities is dominated by a few but large companies. Because when it's few and large, they can collaborate and dictate the prices. We are talking of a situation where maybe even the supplier is a monopoly. So suppliers will have power if maybe the supplier enjoys monopoly, or there are very few of them. They can collude and dictate the prices that are to be sold in a given industry. That is one condition that may make suppliers to have power. Another condition is where there is satisfactory substitutes are not available to industry firms, where there is no substitute products. But where there are substitute products, then suppliers cannot have any power. Where there is no substitute products. Another condition, candidate, the third one, is where the industry firms are not a significant customer for the supplier group. So those are some of the factors that can make suppliers have immense bargaining power of suppliers. We can move on to the bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of buyers. Now, candidates, the buyers affect an industry through their ability to force down prices. They're able to bargain for higher quality or for even more services, but pay for less. So a buyer or a group of buyers is powerful if, number one, they can purchase a large portion of industry's total output. If they can purchase a large proportion of industry goods or services. If out of the 100% of the services or goods that are offered by an industry, if we have two buyers who can manage to buy around 70 or 80% of the products, then that is a condition that can make buyers to have immense power, bargaining power. They can bargain for high quality goods at a lower price because they have the power to do so. Because if they fail to buy the goods from that industry, it means 70% of the products will not be sold. That's the first factor. Another factor is where the sales of the product being purchased account for a significant portion of the seller's annual returns. Do you understand? I've explained here that if a group of buyers purchase a large proportion of industry goods, then they will have bargaining power. Another condition here is that if the sellers only sell to these buyers, if the sales they make after selling to these buyers, the only sales they have, or the only sources of revenue, then these buyers will have power. But if the sellers of these products do not only rely on the 70% I've mentioned, then these buyers cannot have power over the sellers. If the sales of the product being purchased account for a significant portion of the seller's annual return or revenue, that is when the buyers can have power. So we are discussing the conditions or the factors that can make buyers to have bargaining power. That is, if these conditions hold true, then the buyers will have bargaining power. Another factor is that if industry products are undifferentiated, if industry products are what? Are undifferentiated. In other words, if the products are standardized, then buyers pose a credible threat if they were to integrate, say, backwards into the seller's industry. If the products are not differentiated, then buyers will have bargaining power. So those are some of the factors that will make, if they hold true, will make buyers to have bargaining power. bargaining power. Then you can move on to threat of product substitute. Threat of product substitute. Threat of product substitute. Threat of product substitute. Now, candidates, what is a substitute product? A substitute product is a product that appears to be different but can easily satisfy the same need as another product. In other words, substitute products are goods or services from outside a given industry that perform similar or same functions as a product that the industry produces. That is a substitute product. And product substitute candidates present a strong threat to a firm when customers face few, or if they are switching costs, and we can also say when the substitute product prices is lower. If the substitute prices are lower, then that becomes a threat to the products that are offered by an organization. So when doing environmental analysis, it's important to check the substitutes that are available in the industry, okay? And differentiating a product along dimensions that customers value, such as price, differentiating products on lines of, say, quality lines, or services offering after-sale services, reduces substitutes' attractiveness. If you are producing products that can easily be substituted, then you need to try as much as you can and do some differentiation. And that differentiation, I'm saying, can be on the basis of price, of quality, of the services that you offer, the location, and so on. Because this is a real threat. And don't forget, candidates, we are discussing Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces is a model that can be used in environmental analysis, analyzing the environment, especially in industry analysis. Then there is this intensity of rivalry, among the competitors, all right? Now, candidates, in most industries, corporations are mutually dependent. And a competitive move by one firm can be expected to have a noticeable impact on its competitors, and therefore may cause retaliation. So competitive rivalry intensifies when a firm is challenged by a competitor's actions, or when a company recognizes an opportunity to improve its market position. And there are various factors that experience shows to affect the intensity of a firm's rivalry. There are various factors that will lead to rivalry among the competitors. All right? So we are going to mention a few of the factors that experience has shown that intensity of firms in an industry is likely to occur. The first one is numerous or equally balanced competitors. When are we likely to have rivalry, intense rivalry? Intense rivalry is expected, candidates, when there are numerous and equally balanced competitors. Intense rivalries are common for a few firms to believe that they can act without eliciting a response. And firms generally are aware of the competitors' actions, and they sometimes choose to respond to such actions. So intense rivalry is expected where there are many competitors who are on the same level, numerous or equally balanced competitors. One, numerous and equally balanced competitors. The second point is when there is slow industry growth, where the industry is growing slowly. When a market is growing, firms try to effectively use resources to serve the expanding customer base. And growing markets, candidates, reduce the pressure to take customers from competitors. Because when the market is still young and is still growing, the focus is not on getting customers from the competitors, but gaining new markets. So a slow industry growth is a condition where you may find intense rivalry of competitors. But rivalry in no growth or slow growth markets becomes more intense as firms battle to increase their market shares by attracting competitors' customers. Another point is high fixed costs. High fixed costs or high storage costs and such related costs. When fixed costs account for a large part of the total cost, then companies try to maximize the use of their productive capacity, and doing so allows a firm to spread costs across a larger volume of output. However, when many firms attempt to maximize their productive capacity, we may have excess capacity which is created. And to reduce the inventories, then individual companies typically cut the price of the product and offer rebates and other discounts to customers. And that increases rivalry among the competitors. When you try to reduce prices of products, you see those are price wars that may be introduced. So we have high fixed costs can lead to intense rivalry among competitors. Another point, lack of differentiation. When there is no differentiation, then you may likely have intense rivalry where products are not differentiated. When buyers find a differentiated product that satisfies their need, they frequently purchase the product, and that may lead to product loyalty over time. So there may be no competition. We may also have high exit barriers as a cause for intense rivalry. High exit costs or barriers exit barriers, when there are many exit barriers. Sometimes companies continue competing in an industry even though the returns on their investment capital is low or even negative. So firms that make such a choice are likely to face high exit barriers, which include economic barriers, strategic barriers, and so on. We may even have emotional factors that may cause a company to remain in an industry when the profitability of doing so is questionable. So you may have exit barriers, especially we've seen some industries like airline industry where exit barriers are very high, and where you have companies that have specialized assets. These are assets with the values linked to a particular business or location. May have exiting such a business may not be easy. Then there could also be just the fixed cost of exit, such as labor arrangements, which may cause a company not to exit a given industry. We could have reasons like strategic interrelationships. These are relationships of mutual dependence, such as those between one business and other part of a company's operations, including facilities that are shared and access to financial markets. We could also have emotional barriers, all right? Emotional barriers, which is just aversion to emotionally justified business decision because of fear of one's own career, loyalty to employees, and so forth. Where a company wants to maintain loyalty to employees, such a company may not want to exit business. So all these are some of the factors that may cause companies to compete intensely. We are talking of intensity of rivalry among the competitors. So candidates, we've discussed the Porter's 5 forces model, the first one being the threat of new entrants. Number 2 is the bargaining power of suppliers. Number 3, the bargaining power of buyers. Number 4 is the threat of product substitutes. Number 5 is the intensity of rivalry among the competitors. So to remain afloat, to remain in the industry or to meet the company's objectives, it may be important that a business from time to time analyzes some of these forces. Porter's 5 forces model is a tool that can be used by a company to craft its strategic direction or to ensure that the company meets its objective. And you can see it's very important, candidates, to analyze the industry within which the company operates. From the perspective of new entrants, we have these are new entrants, because there is also the power of suppliers, the power of buyers, bargaining power of buyers. Then there is substitutes. These are forces. Then we have here competitors, competition. So these are forces or factors. New entrants can threaten your business. Suppliers can threaten a business, the bargaining power of suppliers. We said, we also mentioned the bargaining power of buyers. When the two bargain, then that means that the profitability can reduce because you may be forced to bring down the prices of products. Threat of product substitutes can also bring your business down. That's why it's important maybe to try and see if you can do product differentiation, and that may lead to customer loyalty to your products and services and so on. Analyzing competition is also important, all right? Competitors, this can drive you out of business. So it's important to check how you can come up with a way of maintaining your customer base or your market share. So thank you, candidates, for attending today's session. We'll continue to learn more in leadership and management subject. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them. Below this video, there is a comment section where you can send your questions, and all your questions will be addressed. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.